a huddle of walruses. And if you would like to see how I do that, stick around. So I've drawn in the walruses and little guy and all his buddies, and I've sprayed my gouache palettes. I'm going to paint this in gouache today, and they were dried gouache palettes, so I'm letting the paint activate, and I'm just going to paint quietly because that way I can mute out all of the lawn mowing that's going on in my neighborhood today. Okay, so I am ready to get started. So I'm starting with a wash of primarily cerulean blue. I think there's a little bit of cobalt in there and maybe even a little bit of blue violet and white. And I'm just trying to do some negative painting around the big old walrus in the picture and get a kind of even background. I probably should have gone for a bigger brush, but I couldn't find one around me up here, so where I was painting. So I was making it work with this smaller brush. And you can see I'm adding a little more white to kind of blend in and get a little bit of a glow around the walrus. I got this picture off of Pixabay. No, I got this picture off pexels.com, and there's quite a few little walruses in here, although you only see the tusks of 3 of them, and only partially. So this big guy is really the focal point. And now I am using some sepia and some sand, and I think a little burnt sienna's in the mix too, and some white. And those are the 3 colors I use most of the time for the walruses. Maybe a little bit of tree brown, which is my own mix of a brown blackish color and some primary black. But not a lot of that until I'm getting to the detail work. And white, of course, if I didn't say that again. I'm just trying to blend in this middle walrus's body. And now I'm getting a wash down on the big walrus. He's a lot darker. So that has more sepia and black in the mix. I'm just trying to get all the basic big shapes with at least a wash on them or one layer. And then I'm trying to blend into that as I keep going. And again, I am negative painting, cutting in around this walrus in the foreground with the big guy in the back. I was just trying to rough in where his rolls are on this third one. And they didn't quite stay exactly where I had mapped them out in the first place. But it did kind of give me something to work with. Now I am just trying to get the highlights in, get the base colors in, working a little bit on his folds. Now I'm working on the big guy in front. You can't really see most of him, or well, you can see just his body. So again, his folds. It's really a game of trying to make the different bodies separate, so you can tell that there's a bunch of different ones in a pile. I did not realize that a group of walruses were called a huddle, but they are. So here we go. So it's a game of contrast, shadows, highlights, trying to get the rolls on their skin, so it isn't just a big pile of brown. Now I'm getting that last guy in. He's a little bit darker, so that helps. A little more contrast. And I am just tweaking the guy in the middle. And working on the big guy. It's just give and take. It's a game of what can I do to make them stand out from each other. And these are the spots that are on the big guy. And some of the other ones have them too, but I did the big guy first because he's got a lot of them. And they're kind of a pale pinky color. He is really my only one that I can give any personality to. Gouache is funny. Watercolor dries lighter. Gouache can dry darker, and it can also dry lighter when it's on top of more gouache, especially if it's light, like the little white pinkish spots kind of fade into the brown before that is underneath it. So it's a little tricky trying to get them to pop without making it cartoonish. And wherever I could put some contrast or some highlights, that helped too. A lot of back and forth. And some negative painting around his tusks. The nice thing about gouache is you can keep working at it and layering it. The bad thing about gouache is you can keep on working on it and layering it. It's really hard to get it to where I wanted it and then just say, okay, that's good enough, I'm going to stop. So I'd look at something and say, oh, I don't quite have that. Let's work on that again. And then I'd lose what I did have and then go over it again. And it's, especially when they're just big brown lumps like they were in this photograph. And he had a rusty colored eye. So I was trying to get that to read. Some dark paint to get some of the rolls and details and get his face carved out a little bit more. Now I'm working on his tusks and the one tusk over on the side and the two in the middle. I put white down first and then I do go over them with a little bit of brown because they're not by any means pure white. They were more of an ivory color and they were round, they're curved, so some of it was shadow. I'm still working on this guy, trying to get his head to pop out a little bit, which is on its side and up, kind of almost upside down. And back to details. Giving a shade to the tusks there. Some highlights around the eyes, on his chin. He has these big whiskers all over his face, and so does the one that's laying on its side. But I wanted to wait till I had a good base coat down before I tried to do that, because once you put them in there, you can't really paint around them really easily. I did a little bit to get a little shadow and make them pop, but you had to pretty much have your undercoat kind of already down and pretty solid. I was trying to find the ruling pen, which makes really nice thin lines. And it's a little tricky to try and get it where the gouache is flowing just perfectly out of it. And it's not too thick or not too thin. And it's the right width. But once you get it going, it really is the easiest way to do really thin lines. It works really great for putting down masking fluid too, if you need a thin line of masking fluid for a whisker or something. It works lovely for that. I kept having to adjust it and try to get the paint in it the right consistency. Working on some more highlights. If I can't make his eye look good and his whiskers look good, then the whole painting doesn't work. He being the focal point, he really needs to read really nicely. I used to do animals in college with colored pencil, and I always started with the eye because if I got the eye, then I could do the picture and it would be good. And if I didn't get the eye, then it was all lost. And I didn't want to put in a whole lot of time and then finally get to the eye at the end of the painting and find out that it wasn't going to work because I just didn't capture it. So I always started with the eye and then moved on to the rest of the face and then moved outward from that. And now I have my brush out and I am just giving a little shadow under some of the whiskers so they pop more. And a little bit of details here and there. Okay, I could keep playing around with this all day, and but it's just a sketch. It's just supposed to be a sketch, so definitely gonna have to speed it up. Of course, you'll know that already. Anyway, I'm going to sign it and date it. Sure I am. Come on. All right. It is Huddle. And it is, let me think, 11th? Can't really read that, so let's give it a little white for some legibility. So if you've stuck around this long, I give you credit for your patience. And if you'd like to help me out, you could hit the like button. That's a great help. And If you would like to see more of my videos, hit the subscribe button. And if you would like to be notified of future videos, hit the cute little bell. And that would be really nice. And you would not miss these exciting things of me working with gouache till the cows come home. Anyway, that's a little bit more visible. So, and if you would like to, please check out my Etsy shop where I have prints of my artwork, along with cute little monsters and some other fun things for sale. And until next time, thank you so much for watching.